My name is Mary Dhonau and I've been flooded on quite a few occasions. My worst flood was in the year 2000 when it was about waist deep in my home. The thing that upset me most at the time was the fact that my memories were washed away, things that insurance could not pay for. For example, I was saving my children's little handprints, playgroup pictures, stories they'd written, things that sort of catalogued their development, and I'd planned on giving them back to them on their 18th birthday. And of course I lost them in the flood and they all had to be thrown into a skip. And that upset me more than anything else. Back in those days, there was no help and no support or advice available, apart from that of my near neighbours, and we all supported each other through that nightmare, and the friendships forged still remain today. We all lobbied for a flood alleviation scheme, which was a sewage pumping station, because we were sadly flooded heavily with raw sewage. And one thing I did learn through that experience is that a flood alleviation scheme can reduce your risk, but it doesn't take it away. And in 2007, we were all flooded again because the pumping station was overwhelmed, there was a power cut, the backup generator didn't work, and we flooded again. But prior to that, I had looked into what I could do myself to stop floodwater coming into my home. Because floodwater came from underneath, it was quite difficult to keep it out, so we put in a tanking system, and we'd put the plug sockets up the wall, hard flooring down that could be washed, lightweight doors that could be lifted up. And when we were flooded again, we were able to do all that and pump the little bit of water that got in out, sanitise, dry, and move back downstairs very quickly, which was far better than being displaced for 9 months as we were after the 2000 flood. So after that, I really spent a lot of time looking into what we could do at a home and a business level to try and stop the water getting into our homes, or reducing the damage it could do if it did get in. And since then, there have been tremendous developments in flood resilience products, and a few things that you could do were consider fitting barriers to your doors, or ordinary looking flood doors to stop the water from getting in. If you've got air bricks, think about fitting an air brick cover, or better still, having a self-closing air brick, because we tend to get flood warnings in the middle of the night at 3:30 when it's raining, and fitting an air brick cover's not great in awful weather, but having a self-closing air brick can let it do it for you. Think about sump pumps, non-return valves, so you don't get sewage coming back into your home through your toilets or your sinks. And you can get little puddle suckers that can keep the flood water down in your home. And also think about the maintenance of the outside of your home, because water will find its wicked way in anywhere. So if you've got loose pipes coming out, make sure you seal them. Make sure your mortar is in good condition, and if not, get it replaced and using waterproof mortar. So there's an awful lot you can do to try and keep it out, but we've got to remember that even that can be overtopped in a bad flood. So think about adapting the inside of your home, so if the water does get in, the damage can be limited. So things like washable plaster, ceramic tiles to the floor with waterproof grout and adhesive, or you can get a very nice looking laminate look-like floor that's in fact waterproof. Think about hardwood doors, because they can be wet and reused again, or lightweight doors that can be lifted up. Make sure your services, like your boiler and your electric points, are up the wall. Think about installing a flood resilient kitchen that can be washed down and sanitised. Doesn't have to cost that much more. There's an awful lot you can do, but don't go about doing it yourself. Seek advice from a suitably qualified surveyor, And he will do a property resilience survey and tell you how the water can get into your home and what you can do to try and prevent that, and also how you can make the appropriate adaptations to the inside of your home. Now, recently a code of practice, an industry-wide code of practice was put together. So make sure that your surveyor adheres to that, and also that the installer adheres to the advice written in the code of practice and the advice given, specified to him by the surveyor. And then make sure that when that's all been done and the installer has finished, that the surveyor comes and checks that everything's been done towards his specification and will sign it off. Make sure that you know how to install all the barriers that you've got in place, because the last thing you want is to have to fit one in the middle of the night and not know how to do it. Have regular dry runs to keep your memory up to date. And also make sure you've got a maintenance contract in place to check the barriers on a regular basis and check things like your sump pump, as I've had a couple of reports that sump pumps that haven't had maintenance have failed to work. So make sure you do all those things. And whilst it won't be a picnic, it'd be a heck of a lot better than being out of your home for 9 months and or 2 years, as people were in the year 2007, and many of those living in caravans. Make sure you sign up for an Environment Agency flood warning. Know what you're going to do if a flood does happen. For instance, where you're going to put your car. Plan where you're going to move your stuff. In fact, write it down, because if you get a flood warning, often your mind goes into overdrive. But having a useful list written down, knowing what to do, for instance, where your plastic boxes are to put all your stuff in, and plan where you're going to put things. Just little things written down can help you. And most importantly, and the very most important thing you and your family can do in all this is to stay safe. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope that this has helped you a little bit.